Hey guys, welcome to our video. We're going to talk about purple hibiscus. We're going to talk about the three discussion topics that we formed in class. We have Maad, Hamza, and Ali. And yeah, Maad is going to start with the summary of the book.
So the novel Purple Hibiscus contains four main characters, Papa, Mama, Jaja and Kimbili. Kimbili is the narrator. We see the story through her 15-year-old perspective.
Her father, Papa, is a very devoted and Christian that always tries to enforce Christianity on his children and other family members, and he tries to save his daughters and other family members from sin. Moreover, there's a lot of corruption that's in the government that we see in the book, and there are many other themes that we will talk about. So I wanted to start off this discussion by talking whether Papa's abuse to his other family members actually represents Christianity or not. So on page 194, Papa basically puts Kambili in a bathtub and pours hot water on her in order to burn her feet. And he did this because she slept in a house in Auntie Afioma's house where a heathen, which was his father or Kambili's grandfather, was living. And when they came back, he basically beat her for sleeping into a heathen. So I wanted to say the quote: "So you saw the sin clearly and you walked right into it. Kambili, you are precious." His voice quavered now like someone speaking at a funeral. So you should strive for perfection. You should not see a sin and walk right into it. However, I feel that Papa contradicts himself, because on Psalm 11:55 in the Bible, the quote is, "The Lord tests the righteous, but his soul hates the wicked and the one who loves violence." So basically in the Bible it's written that God is the one that should test the righteous and basically beat or judge the rest of the others. And God does not like violence, so that contradicts Papa's beliefs.
Yeah, I would like to add about Papa's behaviors in the book and how his actions have caused like many different issues throughout the book. I wanted to add in page 248. You know that small table where we keep the family Bible, Nene? Your father broke it on my belly. Later on, we learned that Papa actually broke a table on Mama's stomach, which caused infertility in her stomach, which caused another life. And this is not very Christian at all. It's not even moral for that to happen. So Papa's actions have really caused more problems than good.
I kind of disagree with your point, because I believe that Papa is trying to educate his children because they're still young. Kambili is a teenager and Jaja also is a teenager. So I think they're not very wise in making decisions and thinking for themselves. So I'm not saying that Papa using violence is a good way to teach his children, but I think it's his job as a father to teach his children right from wrong. I think that his punishments were quite extreme and he could have influenced them in a different way, but he still has the right to teach his children right from wrong.
Like you're saying that he can teach his children right from wrong, and yes, obviously him and his mom do have the obligation, responsibility to do that. But I don't think that beating your child or pouring hot water, hot tea on your daughter is the right way to do it. Like I can't see the reasoning behind pouring hot water and how that's gonna prevent her from a mistake that I didn't even think was that big. All she did was sleep at her grandfather's house.
I wanted to agree with Hamza's point that his actions are not very Christian at all, as the Bible states that the Lord tests the righteous, but his soul hates the wicked and the ones who love violence. And he's very violent as a father, and his actions do not actually raise his children. In fact, they become more rebellious as Jaja became more rebellious. So as a father, he hasn't really he has provided for his family, yes, but the discipline towards his children and his wife has like caused the actions way worse than he can imagine.
But I'm talking about his intentions. His intentions were to educate his children and teach them right from wrong. For example, every time after he beats Judge or Kimbili, he starts crying and he starts asking for forgiveness, and he says that he was only trying to teach them. That's what I'm talking about, that his intentions were to help them not sin.
Yeah, we do see that sometimes, like throughout the book, that Papa gets angered all at a sudden and then does an action that he soon regrets. And I think that goes back to his personality and how he was brought up. But I don't think that justifies what he's done, and I don't think that justifies beating your wife, or as Ali said before, killing your, like basically leading your wife to a miscarriage. That's not something practical, and that's not something you can justify by saying, I have anger issues or.
His actions have caused him to die, basically. His wife was forced to poison him, and which caused the entire family to go through much trouble. Jaja had to go to jail for 3 years, all from the father's actions in the beginning.
So are you saying that Mama's murdering of Papa was justified or not?
It was justified because of all the pain and all the hurt he's been putting through for the family. I feel like at the end she gave up and wanted to see justice to be done towards Papa, as he was never fazed in his life and he was never beat, as we can tell from the story. So I feel like it was justified to a certain extent.
And I think it was very brave of her to step up and take action, because throughout the novel we could see in the early chapters that her personality was weak. Every time she got beat or saw her children getting beat, she would just stay quiet and polish her figurines. But now we could see how her character has developed throughout the story, and she took action by poisoning Papa.
Honestly, I would disagree with both of you because, okay, Mama was abused for many years and her children were abused as well, but that doesn't give her the right or the decision to murder Papa or poison him, because it just makes her as bad as Papa is. Because Papa killed an innocent baby, that's what you said 2 minutes ago, but now Mama killed an innocent Papa, so that's still, like, she's still doing what's supposed to be God's job as she's killing other people.
Yeah, I can see where you think that, but Papa killing a child that hasn't even been formed yet through his violence of teaching a lesson, that's not the first incident that he's done before. He's caused much violence in the family, and I think if he were to live long enough, more violence would have came. Jaja would have eventually killed him. So I feel like the mother's action, like her braveness to decide, okay, this is the time where I have to poison my husband, it was very hard for her. And it was very hard for her family. But like, she thought it through, and she thought sooner or later it's gonna happen.
Look what happened after. She killed Papa, but then her son suffered more than anyone else. Her son Jaja went to prison for 3 years. How is that justified?
I think this is
for her mistakes. She made her son go to court. What type of mother would do that?
I think this is a very sensitive topic, because not only it's happening in the novel, but a lot of people experience this in real life. I'm not saying that Mama her killing of Papa is justified. I don't think anyone should murder anyone else for any given reason, but I do think that she deserved credit for taking action. She could have done it in a different way. She could have told the police, she could have told one of her relatives to ask for help, to ask Papa for help, maybe he needed treatment. But I don't think murder was the right way.
So I wanted to start off with saying that Papa, I wanted to agree that Papa actually brainwashed Kimberly. We can see like from her actions throughout the book and how she developed as a person, she still thinks of Papa. And also towards the end of the book, after Papa had passed away, we see that she says, God knows best. I said, God works in mysterious ways, and I thought how Papa would be proud that I had said that. And even after Papa's death, she's still affected of what Papa has done to her throughout the book. So yeah.
I would actually agree with you, and I do always think that like her life is dictated by what Papa does. So on page 130, what I found interesting is basically, I know that I had never thought about the university where I would go or what I would study. When the time came, Papa would decide. She's basically saying that everything she wants to do in her life and what she wants to pursue as her career is up to Papa, and he basically dictates where she can go and where she can study. So I think that she is brainwashed and controlled by Papa.
I actually disagree with you, because talking about universities, for example, in our Arab culture here, a lot of parents decide for their students, for their children, what they should study. And that's not brainwashing, that's just trying to help guide them to the right choice. I'm not saying that Papa hasn't brainwashed Kambili. He has certainly affected the way she makes decisions and takes actions, but I believe that throughout the novel she has progressed as a character, because as you can see, after she went to Auntie Fioma's house, she noticed that, this is a quote from the book, it was what Auntie Fioma did to my cousins, I realized then, setting higher and higher jumps for them in the way she talked to them, and what she expected of them. She did it at all time, believing they would scale the rod, and they did. It was different for Jaja and me. We did not scale the rod because we believed we could. We scaled it because we were terrified that we couldn't. This implies that Papa was trying to use a more of a violent way to teach their children. Jaja and Kambili were afraid to fail because they were afraid of the punishment. But unlike her cousins, her aunt set them sort of into the right way where they wanted to succeed, not just because they were afraid of their father. Throughout the novel, we could see that Kambili changed as a character. After she visited her Auntie Fioma's house a couple of times and she actually had freedom from her father, we started to see change in her character. At the beginning, when she went to Auntie Fioma's house, her father gave her a schedule she had to follow, and she had to do all these things. And every time she'd see Auntie Fioma and her children doing something ungodly, she would not participate, and she would just stare and look at Jaja. But we could see that change throughout the second time she visited Auntie Fioma's house. She developed a relationship with Father Amadi, and that's against Christianity to have a relationship before marriage. And we could also see that she started playing sports because Father Amadi told her her legs were good for running, and she didn't even consider what her father would think. And she once put on lipstick when she went out with Father Amadi, and she went to the hair salon and she did her hair. So she started to change throughout the novel, especially when she got her freedom.
I wanted to go back to your points where she started to play sports and put on lipstick. It's part of what childhood is, and her father is stopping her from being a child that's going to live their life, and soon enough they're going to be an adult and they can't experience things children do. They cannot have fun. And also I want to go back to the university point. Our parents today in our generation, they recommend what we should do. We're not forced upon what we should do. We just know that they have experience and they recommend, but at the end of the day it's most likely our choice.
Yeah, and going back to the lipstick, yeah, I don't know if you might have paid attention, but she immediately removed the lipstick off her face as there was some fear of her father, which is Papa, realizing, and he wasn't even there. So she's not even just brainwashed, she's too scared to do anything even though he won't find out. So it's not just, it's gone past brainwashing, it's gone past controlling. She's too scared to pursue her childhood and actually be happy.
But being scared is not the same as brainwashing. If she was brainwashed, she would have never even spoke to Father Amadi in that way. She would have never even tried putting on the lipstick. Even when her grandfather died, she would have never taken her cousin's painting of grandfather Nuku and took it home and hid it, which ended up in her being beat and going to the hospital. So I agree with what you're saying, that she's afraid of Papa and she has fear for him, but if she was brainwashed, she would have never done all these stuff.
I see your point, but this all happened after she stayed with Auntie Fioma. I feel like if she hadn't ever stayed with Auntie Fioma and actually felt freedom for once, then this wouldn't have happened. She would have stayed away. But since she felt freedom, she felt like an actual child, she decided to do these things, and while she was doing these things, she was remembered by her father. So this is brainwashing.
Adding on to your point, I feel like Jaja contributed to how Kambili changed, and that's why she was no longer brainwashed towards the end, after Auntie Fioma's house. As Jaja constantly, throughout the whole book, from the beginning to end, revolts and rebels against his father, and he's seen as the older brother that's supposed to take care of Kambili and his mother against Papa, basically. So I feel that when Jaja decides to kill the chicken or not go to communion or deny his father's words, Kambili looks at that and kind of admires it, but he regrets that he did. It's the same thing.
Talking about Jaja, why do you think Jaja took the blame for Papa's murder and protected his mother, even though she killed his own father?
Because Jaja constantly wanted to protect his family, as I said. There was a part, I remember when he was comparing himself to Obiora, which is the son of Auntie Fioma. He was saying that Obiora is younger than him, and he's still able to hold the house and be the man of the house more than Jaja is. So I think Jaja, he wanted to do that. He wanted to prove to his family that I can take care of you guys when Papa's dead.
Because Papa beat them so many times and he used to just sit there and not do anything. So he thought, this was his time to be the man of the house and actually take action.
Yeah, so I agree with both of your points that Georgia actually wanted to feel like a man for once and wanted to protect his family because he couldn't do that with Papa beating his sister and his mother. He felt helpless. But now he actually had a choice between saving his mother or betraying her, basically. So he thought, okay, let me just do this for my mother, and it paid off all his debts that he couldn't save his sister and his mother for going to jail for 3 years. So I know this could be confusing for viewers that never read this book, but these subjects are important because we see this every day in our lives, especially in the Arab culture. We see abuse towards wife, towards their children. We see fathers brainwashing their children. We see children taking the blame for things that they haven't done just to protect their family. And this book really touches all these subjects and all these things occurring in the world today.
For our third argument, we're going to talk about whether Kambili was brainwashed.
For our third argument, we wanted to discuss.
ليش تحكي ما بعرف
أنا ما بتذكر ليش For our third argument, we wanted to talk about whether Kambili was.
كله منك